What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. Nick here, as always, and Cory is not with us today. He's on a much needed vacation, in probably one of the most beautiful places on the earth, Hawaii. So we're down a diamond dog today, but we got our buddy Shane here. So we're going to take over and talk about the newest episode of Ted Lasso entitled Rainbow. Shane, how you doing today, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's currently Sunday night, but it's been a nice evening for me, so no complaints.
Sunday scaries aren't kicking in just yet.
Yeah, I'm not trading Monday morning yet, so hopefully this night just keeps getting longer and I won't have to wake up as early. But yeah, no complaints there. So I know Cory's having it much better than the two of us.
Yeah.
Sipping on some tropical drinks, but it's okay.
If only.
I know, right? We'll carry the torch well with Adam just for this week. But so yeah, let's dive into the newest episode of Rainbow. The synopsis that Apple has, it just says Nate learns how to be assertive from Keely and Rebecca. Ted gets asks Roy for a favor. Very vague. Only two sentences to go off of, but man, there is a ton of stuff in this episode, which to me, the episode seemed a little bit longer than usual, which I'm not complaining about, because more Ted Lasso, the better, in my opinion. But it just kept going, and I'm like, yes, please give me more. But I guess we'll start off with Ted and Rebecca.
Yeah. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago where we hypothesized that maybe we were getting like a romance through the banter app between characters that may not know at the time.
Right.
And they seem to either heavily imply or heavily want us to think that it is Ted and Rebecca on banter,
right,
speaking to each other. There's two cuts. One is where Ted like sits back in his desk and starts typing, and then it goes to Rebecca, and then one later where she's typing on there and it cuts to Ted and he's like shit-eating grin as he's walking down the hallway. I don't think it's them. I think it's to throw us off. Like it's too obvious, right?
Yeah, I'm like, man, they could either be setting us up for a complete like misdirection. I think the irony could be even to the point where we see from both their perspectives they're meeting at the same place, but they end up actually maybe meeting other people. I think that's a very good possibility. But it could be a fake out. We could just be thinking that it's them that they're talking to, and it's like, oh, they're finally kind of get put together, maybe, or not. But I know there's a good portion of the community that doesn't want to see them together.
I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent about it.
The writers know that. Like I think with how they set that up in season 1, it would be such a huge reversal.
Yeah.
To do that in season 2.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes me think like they're just messing with us.
Yeah, and you got to think if they were to get together and go on a date, while they might have good qualities that they could share together, it's at the same time you start to mix that business and personal relationship.
Yeah, I mean, she is his boss. Like it's a big thing. It's Jan and Michael.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey, then they're not doing well, and maybe she makes a decision because she can overrule him, and he doesn't like it, and he just basically would have to deal with it and put that aside to not let that affect their own personal relationship, and it's a very hard thing to do. So, for the sake of not ruining their relationship that they currently have together, I hope that's not the case. Again, who knows how long the show will get to run for, if it's going to get maybe like 5 seasons or something. So
currently it's 3.
Right.
They're not sure if it'll go longer, but I think the plan is 3. So it's moving quite along.
It is. And of course, I think we've talked about before of a sweet spot for seasons, and 5 or 6 is a good number, so that you don't overdo it. Especially with a show like this. While it does have great writing and great characters involved, how often are you going to kind of do the same thing and talk
you
about the
don't want
same
it to be
thing?
Grey's Anatomy where you're in like season 80 and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh look, there's
Another
another
patient.
massive event that
Yeah.
has occurred and 25 people are in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So there are. I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe in the weeks to come, where it goes, how we as audience members get deceived by the writing. I'm okay if we get played for fools, but it's interesting the way they kind of give us a little tickle here.
Yeah.
In this episode, because that wasn't really the focal point of this episode.
No, but like it ended up being the thing that I like focused on the most, especially like
Yes.
that little like hallway strut where it's like, everyone knows that strut, and it could just be like he's talking to his kid and he like is just like on top of the world because he always
Right.
does that before his games. He talks to his kid.
Yep.
Maybe that's it, and maybe that they're just like fooling us. But
Possibly
that
that's good. That's a good point. But yeah, the episode doesn't even start off with him. It starts off with Nate.
Yes,
as he has trouble walking into a restaurant.
Yeah, we talked about this too. I think with the first episode where the very first person we see of the entire season is Nate.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, they've kind of set up that like he's not confident in himself, so he's like being mean to the other towel boy.
Yeah.
And so I think we're starting to see that come out where he's not very confident in himself. It was like the SpongeBob and Plankton assertive episode.
Yeah.
We did get a great line when Rebecca does her like cat hiss thing, where Keely's just like you're amazing. Let's invade France.
Yeah, dude.
So good.
That was amazing. She's like, "Fuck, you're amazing. Let's invade France." I lost it when she said that. I'm like, I love Keely. Oh man,
yes, so good.
Yeah, it was. Part of me always feels bad for Nate because he does seem like he has a really nice and kind spirit. It's like, oh, just over there, and very, very soft spoken, and until we see these little outbursts, and it's like, oh, maybe some of that repressiveness that Nate has is coming out in bursts.
Yeah.
And now he just kind of gets stiff armed or strong armed by this Jade waitress.
Yeah.
And all he wants is just to impress his parents and have a table by the window. Like that's not so much to ask of anyone. Yeah. And she was being very snobby about it. And it's like, oh, we can see you, but it's in a table in the back. Like, right. I'm like, whoa. Is it because he's not the best looking guy sort of thing? Like, and to the point where he's like, oh, I know Roy Kent. And she's like, oh, is he your father? And I'm like, where would you draw that depiction? Like, no, they're not. He's not his father. Like, they're probably within the same age range, right? Like, so it was just like, man, she's just really acting like a.
It was such a good payoff though too, for when he eventually like musters up the courage. And then he gets the window table and then he heat checks and he's like, also your number?
Yeah. Like when he's
hit 3 threes in a row, he's got to try the half court shot.
Yeah, dude. I love the confidence building that Keely and Rebecca go through with him. And to the point where he kind of gets, he has that breakthrough in the bathroom and then he spits at himself.
He needs to go clean that mirror.
And I'm like, Nate, bro, that's nasty, man. Like, that's not even in the sink.
We don't kink shame on this show.
Yeah, like, dude, just spit and I'd spit in the sink because I'm like, is he just so disgusted or disappointed at himself for being insecure and not comfortable with himself? Like, I spit at you. I was like, is that a France thing? Like,
that was Monty Python, right?
Yeah, that was a Monty Python reference. So I think maybe, but
that was what your reference. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. And again, like when he finally he like whistles at his parents, like,
yeah,
like he's like, I'm not a dog, like just.
But Nate is a diamond dog.
But Nate is a diamond dog. You are correct. And I'm glad he there's something I want to say about Nate, but we'll save that a little bit later because
of course the biggest plot thread in this episode is Roy Kent.
The best Roy Kent.
It's what we've been waiting for.
Yeah,
I mean, we said it like after the first episode, he was gonna come back and coach, Like that was what we predicted, and
Yep.
everyone was waiting for it. And of course, it finally happens.
Yep. Well, it took 5 episodes, which
Yeah,
isn't
yeah, it
bad.
was faster than I expected. Actually, I
Yeah.
expected, one of these like, low points of the season, which I guess it kind of is. Like they haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah.
But he pulls a classic sports movie trope and takes him to the street ball. And
Right.
it's like you got to learn, the street smarts about the sport and rediscover the game. It's like Mighty Ducks,
Yeah.
D2.
Yeah, there was a feel to
you
it.
got to get Keenan. What's his name? From Keenan and Kel.
Keenan
He's
Allen,
in the movie,
right?
That's the wide receiver.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right. Oh wow, I'm terrible.
I can't remember his name, but
Charlie. What's his face? You can get Charlie in here. Adam Banks.
Yes.
All the Ducks players. Emilio Estevez. Get Emilio back. Like.
But yeah, I mean, it's that classic. Rediscover yourself with people who you overlook.
Yeah, he's like, he goes, football is made to have fun. You're supposed to be having fun out there. Like and he's right. Like, and when he's talking on the show as a pundit, and I mean, I love how he just completely flames, and he flames his old coach. He's like, didn't you fail at get your driver's license taken away from drunk driving? And then he's like, is that the same medication you're on when it made you piss your pants? Just like like damn, Roy Kent just fried him on like TV. But yeah, the part where he talks about, we're on the outside looking in, and someone who watches a lot of sports, and as much as anyone who does, that's all we're doing, right? Like we're not there. I know, I've played sports for a number of years, and not on the professional level, at least not on any level that receives like harsh criticism. But for anyone on that level, like it is tough. And that was one thing that always bugged me about these sports analysts that like have never played before. It's like they don't know what they're talking about. Like it's one thing when the coaches or like Michael Strahan or like Charles Barkley, right? Like these players who have been in that atmosphere and they know what's going on in players' heads, but other people are like, oh, like, come on, that's so easy. Like just do this or that. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And Roy just has to address that. And you can almost hear this like inflection in his voice. Like,
he breaks down.
Yeah, dude. Like, and I was like looking at his ass. I mean,
he realizes he's got to be there.
Yeah. I'm like, there's something there. Like,
it's amazing how much like he's so deadpan, but he expresses so much emotion at the same time. Like it's a very like fine line that he treads where like he doesn't get too emotional, but you can totally see the emotion, and it's brilliant acting.
Yeah, those parts with Roy were just tremendous. Even to the point where he's at his kebab shop, and his little talk with Ted, really, where he kind of gets that ask from Ted, the favor, the offer, and Roy just basically says, go fuck yourself. And it's like, well, it can't hurt to ask, but it's also one thing that I appreciate. And it really speaks true to real life outside of the show. When I can't think of the guy's name, but who owns the place, he had a really good opportunity, and he's like, but that's not what I wanted to do. Cause that's not what was meant for me. That's not what didn't make me happy or whatever. And so it was like, I like making kebabs, and it's like one of those things where if he never did that, then Roy and Ted wouldn't be sitting there having that conversation. That wouldn't be the same spot that Roy has a kebab named after him, right? Like, I mean, as much as he wants to take it down, like it's still there.
Yeah.
An honorary for him. But it's the point where Roy has this epiphany, like he has to go.
Yeah.
And like, he's like, Jeff,
I have to go.
It was very dramatic, and I loved it at the same time. And of course he's like, running, and we get to see like how bad his knee actually is. Yeah. Like you just hear this, and I'm like, oh,
that was in the Christmas episode too. He had to fix the knee.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that they did because the Christmas episode like was planted in there later, so they like put that in, like they wrote that after the rest of the episodes. It was like, oh,
like a
we gotta
precursor,
really
maybe.
emphasize the knee. Yeah.
Like
I wonder
he
if they
can't
did
come
that.
back and play. Like
Yeah.
he's just seriously like sidelined. Like his playing career is over, but his knowledge of the game can still be used for other purposes. And he's like, he gives the cab driver like all of his money.
Yeah.
He gives him a dating advice, and then he gives his gold watch to a guy on a bike.
Yeah.
And he gets to the stadium. The two people like at the gate won't let him in.
Oh, it was so good, right?
Dude, that scene was hilarious. I mean, the whole thing was
Reba McEntire.
Reba McEntire.
Yep. And then he walks in and it's like, enjoy the game. Fuck you. Oh, it is you. So good.
Fuck you. Just, dude, I mean, I was like, after this episode, I'm like, I really have to commit and get a Roy Kent jersey. Yeah. I might just have to grin and bear it, with no regrets, of course, but just, man, and the point where he's walking down the hallway, or the gate, and he comes out on the field, and you just kind of see that shot.
Yeah.
And how
it was very well shot. All the stadium shots were beautiful.
Yeah, very, very well done. You know, I don't know how much of it was real. Yeah, yeah. But like at the same time, I'm like, I believe it.
Yeah.
You know, so and then of course the theme song kicks in for Roy Kent. He's here, he's there, he's ever fucking where, Roy Kent. Like, and then go ahead.
I was gonna say we get to the point that you were gonna talk about with Nate, where we get that little look.
Yeah, like from Keely looking at, like, you know, pointing out there's Roy, her bae, and then you got the I'm sure it's an Easter egg.
Yeah.
We'll point out.
Got all these lines plotted out. We'll get there.
With the, I won't take all the thunder, but the slight conversation between Roy and Ted, and the reaction from Coach Beard. But it's at that point where he walks past Nate, and you can hear there's all this cheering, all this celebration, but this like the strings from like the violins or whatever, like it's like that creepy, eerie music, like with Nate, and it kind of, the camera kind of just focuses on him for a second or two.
He is threatened.
Yeah, he's like, he's got this nice suit on. He's looking professional, serious. And here comes Roy Kent walking right past him, all black, like John Wick.
Yep.
Crowd.
I mean, there's only 3 spots, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because, I mean, I wonder, like, it's definitely a source of conflict between the two. Yeah. But I wonder if, like, this is setting up kind of like a Ted exiting for a little bit. I mean, we kind of, like, we see that Ted conversation with the doctor, Dr. Fieldstone, and she's like, my office is open for you. So I wonder if we get kind of like a breakdown from him in the future. And, you know, Roy has to kind of take the lead. So I don't know. There's a lot of plot threads that this opens up. We've talked about the Ted and Rebecca one, and then this one, but then also like Roy and Jamie Tart, because they're both together again.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that can come from this. You know, where is the mentality from the players going to be with one of their, you know, former teammates being the players coach now? And I don't know if Nate ever really had a quote unquote like actual like title within the team, the league, whatever. But I'm kind of wondering if he might quit or just kind of lose control at some point and kind of just go off. I mean, I don't know if it's just from him feeling threatened, but I do think there's a possibility that he ends up speaking with the doctor as well. And I think the big thing that we haven't seen yet, obviously, but this kind of hinted at it again with Ted, you know, kind of being standoffish as well with speaking with the doc, right? Like, there's the
he was in a weird space.
Yes.
When he was talking with her, it was like he was almost like doing his bit too much. So like you can tell not everything's rosy under the surface with Ted. I mean, the past couple episodes have set that up too, with like
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life and stuff like that. So it's definitely coming. I'll be excited to see what they do with it.
Same here. Cool. So let's hear some of
Let's
those
talk about
Easter
communism.
eggs. Yeah, communism.
So
I mean,
Soviet
rom-com.
Russia. No, I'm just wrong. Communism. So yes, this episode was a celebration of all things romantic comedies, which Ted Lasso refers to as rom-communism. I have so many Easter eggs to go through. I mean, I can't even count them. But this entire episode was just all rom-coms. I mean, from Roy running through at the end and he's in the cab and all of that, to all of the lines, like it was structured like a rom-com.
Oh yeah.
And they referenced all of them. So I've got a couple in here. Let's just go down the list. So first off, banter. The person that she's talking to is LDN 152. So in You've Got Mail, which I talked about a couple episodes ago,
right,
Tom Hanks's screen name is NYC 152. So whoever she's talking to is LDN, London instead of NYC.
Yeah.
And hers is Boss Girl. And then You've Got Mail, it was Shop Girl, which we mentioned last time. So, I mean, clearly like direct rip of
Big time.
that.
Big time.
So, God, we've got all of these quotes. So when Ted says, when you want to spend the rest of your life coaching with somebody, you want the rest of your life to begin ASAP. That's from Sleepless in Seattle.
Right.
It's a direct quote, pretty much. The little scene where the old couple is in the stadium and they're looking at the camera and telling their love story and then saying Titanic ripped it off. Yeah. That's also Sleepless in Seattle. And then the line we referenced earlier, which was where he's like, Roy, he's like, Jeff, I have to go. That's also Sleepless in Seattle. So lots of good Sleepless in Seattle here. Of course, Jerry Maguire is a good one, which you were hinting at earlier. So at the end, you had me at coach.
Yep.
But then also like that conversation between Ted and Roy after the street ball is like all lines from different rom-coms. So he starts with you want to spend the rest of your life coaching. I think he starts with that one.
Yeah.
But then he also says like, you complete our team, which is you complete me, Jerry Maguire. Yep. He also says, I'm just a coach standing in front of a boy, which is I'm just a boy standing in front of a girl. That's from Notting Hill. And then at the end, he says, as you wish, which is Princess Bride.
Yeah.
So that is like 3 just in a row. All Ted Lasso knows is romantic comedy movie quotes in this episode.
Insane.
And then at the kebab shop, he also says, I'll have what he's having, which is from When Harry Met Sally.
Right.
Let's see. The handshake that Isaac does after he's all happy is with the coaches. I think it's with Ted, is very similar to the handshake in Parent Trap. That one of the girls does with I think it's the butler or something.
Yeah.
So it's a very similar type of handshake with like the clapping above and below. Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is that all I've got? I'm sure we'll think of more, but I think those are all the quotes that I had that were specific. But again, like running through the stadium at the end or like down London or whatever, it's like every rom-com ever. It's not, I can't even name one. Like I'm thinking like Love Actually, because we talked about that last week with the boy running through the airport.
Yep.
And now it's like a meme, like at the end you have to run to your lover. In this case, football is his lover.
Yeah, and I don't know, I forget what movie it might be from, but when Roy gets out of the cab, he tells the driver, don't something like date your wife, like it's the first.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't
keep dating your wife or something like that.
Something along those lines. Yeah. Which I'm sure is probably from another rom-com too. But yeah, there were a ton of stuff. It's like, even when Higgins is getting a phone call from his wife and he says, he mutes it or whatever, and then he's like, but I'm gonna text her, and then it's Rainbow, which is the title of the episode.
Yep.
And it's by the Rolling Stones.
And they play it at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's I was like, what does that mean though? Maybe I was like looking for something else behind it, but or if it's just kind of thrown in there just because it's the Stones.
I'm not sure. It could also be in another movie. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm like,
know.
I'm sure
It's
that was a hint to something else. Like, I mean,
These
uh,
writers are clearly like up to snuff on their pop culture references.
dude,
It's
especially in this
crazy.
episode.
This is like, it is so interesting to me that they took this episode of like all of these different plot threads and like put a theme to it. Like we
Yep.
had, I mean, we had Christmas last time, but this is the first time I think that we've kind of seen that entire encompassing theme pop up. Like it's always been a reference heavy show,
Yep.
but until like I guess last week, but like everyone does a Christmas episode.
Sure.
But like this week was very much like we're going to take a genre of film and quote as many freaking things as we can from that genre. And like I don't think there's not many shows that do that. We haven't seen it much in Ted Lasso.
Right.
Community does it quite a bit.
Yep.
That's what it reminded me of, was an episode of Community.
Which I
so
love.
maybe they took some inspiration from that, but overall, really good. This is like the show that you watch it the first time and it's great, and then you watch it the second time and you catch all these other things.
Oh,
or
yeah.
you'll see something else and then you'll be like, oh, Ted Lasso referenced that. So it's a constant game.
Yeah, and it's incredible how the lines are written. You know, it's like, what are we going to write for Ted here? We're just going to have Ted reference rom-com lines, and it's like, so it's almost like the work is kind of cut out for him, or the writers even, because I mean, obviously they have to be clever enough and up with their pop culture references, but just to have the idea like this is how the character is going to be, like it's just like just a bit of an ingenious way of doing things. You know, like I'm a huge fan of Community, and I mean, Abed, just quotes pop culture stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it's great because if you're a fan of pop culture and you recognize these things, then it's just cool to see those references and similarities get made. Yeah. And so it's probably one of the reasons why I like the show so damn much.
Yeah. And they are going, full tilt on that this season.
I'm okay with. So
yeah, I love it.
What would you give this episode? I'm trying to think what we gave the Christmas episode last week.
I gave it a 9.
I think we all did, right? I think we all did.
I would probably give this one an 8. I was super happy that it moved the plot. I didn't find the Nate assertive plot line to be that interesting to me. It just felt like a little bit more of a pause to the narrative, but I bet you if I watch it again, I'll enjoy it more. I have there's issues with balance in the episode because it's like, we just want to see what's happening with Roy, and like, just get me back to Roy. And I mean, most shows and movies have that problem where you pick your favorites. But this one, it was a little bit lopsided in that plot line was just so overwhelming that Nate's plot line was a little bit dull, I guess. Not that it wasn't funny. It didn't really seem like that big of a character moment for him. But yeah, I mean, it's still a very enjoyable episode. Very solid. I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, I was I watched it twice, and I was probably like leaning around an 8, between 8 like 8.2 ish, around there if I'm gonna get granular with it, because as much as I think the best parts were all around Roy, which he was in it a lot, so he sort of helped carry everything with this episode, and we get the minor moving parts with Rebecca, Ted, Nate. We didn't get a lot of Keely, but with her involvement in Rebecca and Nate, the players were only there to make some pop culture references with rom-coms.
Yeah,
and then that was basically it. They got their free Nespresso machines, and they were off the field.
Danny Rojas was born caffeinated.
Yeah. So, like, is that ADD, right? I don't know, but that's pretty nice hookup from Keely. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
But, so I'll go with like about 8.2. It's hard to come off of a Christmas episode like that and as high as we all enjoyed it, but I think from here, the episodes will probably be on par within that 8 range, and hopefully kind of, spicing things up a bit with Ted, the doctor, Nate, his decisions, Roy coaching, the players, Rebecca's relationship, Ted's relationship. There's so much.
It's clearly snowballing into some big
Yes.
moments, and
Yes.
I think that's when we'll start to get the 9s and the 10s, assuming they stick the landing. They could totally flop, but
True.
I have faith in this writing team at this point.
I do too. So, I don't know if I have anything else to add. I know we covered a lot. So
I don't really have anything else. I hope everybody has a good rest of your week, and I hope Scary Roy doesn't haunt you in your dreams with the phone light under his face.
Yes, yeah. So if you don't subscribe to the channel, if you're new here, Roy Kent's going to come after you. Same thing. If you don't like the video, Roy Kent might show up at your doorstep and growl at you a lot and not say any words. And the same thing, if you don't turn on your notification bell for more future content, he might show up again. So if you like hearing more of us, and not as much as Roy Kent, but hearing us talk about Roy Kent, then keep tuning in on a weekly basis and for more future content. We'll be back next week with Cory. He will join us again. The Diamond Dogs will be complete once more, and to talk more Ted Lasso goodness. So, Shane, I hope you have a good rest of your evening and week, and the audience. Thank you for joining us as always.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Until next time, cheers.